now on to someone that also surprised us. And I think it's interesting because Kanye earlier in the week having a bit of a meltdown. Obviously we're starting off Taylor Swift section talk about Kanye, but they are inextricably linked.
Correct.
Kanye's going to drop Donda this Friday. So it seems like he might be in the bit of an episode. Who's publicly putting out there his family is trying to get him to see a psychiatrist, lock him in the house, have him into hospital, whatever they were trying to do. And then Taylor, Thursday, is like, hey, got this surprise album coming tomorrow. Just enjoy. I had a lot of thoughts during COVID. And then Donda doesn't drop and this does. And I think the really interesting
thing...
What
a W, man.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor's just been, I think, getting a lot of W's this year. I mean, she released a documentary. We reviewed it. Pretty shameless, like, self-promotion. But I think the one thing that Taylor has done well and kind of came out of that was her speaking politically, kind of taking this stance as a public figure of which side of societal issues she wants to be advocating for. And I think she's actually been receiving a lot of praise for that. And kind of as she's linked to Kanye's been getting a lot of negative reaction to some of his societal and political stances he's been taking publicly. I think this album is a complete win for her. This is her indie album. There's really no other way to put it. It's indie pop, indie rock, indie singer-songwriter. And the songs are good. Her writing is probably the sharpest it's ever been. Now, this is the but for me. This is probably like my 5th favorite Taylor Swift album.
Okay.
Like, it's just... maybe it's the time of year it dropped. It feels like this should have been dropped 3 months from now, maybe, in the middle of October. Maybe it's that coming off of Lover, which I thought really blended some of her poppiness with some of her more thoughtfulness and some really great production from Jack Antonoff. It felt like this is a good lane for Taylor. This feels like a maturing, but also kind of still giving us the bangers. There's no bangers on here, Dave. There's no bangers, but this is a really heartfelt album. And I think for that reason, this is a total win for Taylor. How are you feeling about Folklore?
Yeah, as you said, it's just very interesting because it's an anti-pop album. It's kind of everything Taylor Swift has actively not done in the past. This is an album that had no lead single, no promotion. It's coming at a time where the music industry was ripe for someone to seize the moment of this caliber. I think everyone for the past few months has been like, oh man, if Rihanna dropped now or Frank Ocean, someone who's been anticipated. And we know Adele's coming in a few months. And I don't think anyone ever thought that Taylor Swift would drop her second album in less than a calendar year. And yet, it's not the album for that moment because it's by design, not for her stadium tours. It's not what she's done before. It's just kind of a personal album that I think, generally speaking, production-wise, is more designed to highlight her biggest strength, her songwriting. It's not she's not forced to keep up with her vocals on any of these songs, right? It's really just about the writing and the songcraft. And as you expect with good Taylor projects, that songwriting is really strong once again. And to me, it's just so funny because this is everything 1989 is not, and it's also a lot unlike Lover, right? Because after Reputation, she kind of recalibrated with Lover. And now it seems like, maybe Lover does not get the big Grammy noms that she was hoping for after Reputation also didn't, right? She still wants that third album of the year. Hasn't gotten it. And now it just seems like she's all right, fuck it. I'm just going to do what I want. I don't give a shit what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm feeling right now, so this is what I'm going to make. And, some Zoom sessions with Aaron Dessner from The National, as well as Jack, of course. How could he not be here? And also a little bit of Justin Vernon. And get something that's, I think for Taylor fans, there's still a lot here to like because her songwriting shines once again. And it's also interesting because I think as Taylor's openly, I believe it was on one of her tweets, there are songs that are not really about her. They're either fictional stories or literally biographical retellings, right? Like the
Mhm.
Last Great American Dynasty song. So it's I think it's a lot to take in ultimately, but and we've been talking about Taylor a lot of late, as you mentioned, with Miss Americana, with updates to the Kanye feud, with the Scooter Braun feud. This is her second album, Republic record. She owns this album. And I think it says a lot that she made an album that she knows probably won't be the source of her most lucrative publishing that she now controls. And yet this is what she made. And despite all that, without no promo, this set the Spotify first day record,
Mhm.
breaking Ariana Grande's mark from with Thank You Next, 80.6 million streams
Crazy.
day one. And track one, is the biggest female song debut on Spotify as a result. And there's other records with Apple as well. So quite the unexpected moment in pop music.
Yeah. It really just dominated Friday and pretty much the whole weekend. I mean, I saw so many people tweeting about it, so many people talking about it, giving it a lot of praise, and I think earned praise on this. I mean, you mentioned the production from Desner. You have Jack jumping in, I think, 4 or 5 songs, including Cardigan, the lead single.
Desner's on 9 of the 16 tracks. Jack is on 4.
It's it's really impressive, and obviously Justin Vernon, I think, obviously was a big influence for this. He jumps on Exile, which I think is maybe not one of the strongest songs on the record, but I think the ending of that song is really awesome, and I think more of a testament to what you talked about, where Taylor isn't trying to catch you. Like on this album, she's not trying to hook you in the first 5 seconds. Like she's not dropping a Shake It Off where like you're just in from the second that song starts. She is like, these are slow burns that you really have to like listen to, hear the story. I think some of them have some pretty catchy hooks, but some of them don't. And I think that the fact that those songs, that she didn't have to rely on writing these catchy hooks, but could still write these really strong songs. It's almost more like Phoebe Bridgers than like Ariana Grande in a sense, like it's really impressive what she did here. And I think it, like you said, it kind of just shows the range that she has and the real talent that she has. It's funny to think about where she was with Reputation, what, 2 or 3 years ago to now. It's like
2017.
How like she totally like righted the ship. People were saying after Reputation, like, oh, Taylor's first real misstep, and Reputation still did okay commercially. I know that the tour still sold, but it's like critically, I think she got a lot of love after Lover, and now she's really getting a lot of critical acclaim for sure. I wanted to ask you one. You mentioned the track "The Last Great American Dynasty."
Mm-hmm.
I was reading some theories about the album. Did you read this theory that song, while being about the famous heiress that owned
Rebecca Harkness, who Taylor Swift now owns that home that was being referenced in Rhode Island?
Insane, but
years now.
Apparently, there's a line in there that is the same line that she uses in "This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things," which was reportedly a song about Karlie Kloss and their potential relationship. And people are saying that this might be like the sequel to that, the follow-up, because Karlie Kloss has famously fallen from grace.
That's right.
Or at least out of the Taylor's grace.
Kushner, right?
Friends. Yes, she's a Kushner at this point. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Wow. When I first heard it, I immediately thought of her brief relationship with Connor Kennedy, because the Kennedys, a great American dynasty.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of. But it's actually interesting. You listen to the song again, you read about it. You're like, oh, wow, this is actually just kind of the story on its face about Rebecca Harkness. And that's cool because that's not something Taylor Swift has done all that much, And because she's such a strong songwriter, she can actually make an engaging song that's literally like Wikipedia. You know?
Yeah.
Really
and
cool.
A lot of these songs, I mean, some of them I think are personal, and some of them feel like just kind of pulling from memories or pulling from experiences she's thought about. There's the love triangle 3. I think it's Betty, Cardigan, and Illicit Affair, which those 3 are supposed to be written from each perspective of a love triangle. We don't know if Taylor is referring to something she experienced or not, but she's obviously jumping perspectives. She couldn't have been all three unless she's had multiple love triangles. Perhaps that's the case. But it's interesting because it does feel like Taylor isn't just writing about heartbreak and lost loves and things. Like a song like Seven, it seems like she's talking about a little kid that she might have been friends with that whose parents were abusive and like wanting them to like to save them in a sense and not have to be in a domestically violent situation. This Is Me Trying, I thought was a really engaging song about breaking up, which kind of goes back into the Taylor mold. But then you have something like Mad Woman, which is more of a political commentary about like, women aren't supposed to get angry, women aren't supposed to show these sorts of emotions or act this way. It's kind of her like, you ought to know, in a sense.
And cool. Mad Woman really stood out to me because I just think it's a much stronger attempt than I think actually lands this time for this kind of message when you juxtapose it with The Man from Lover, which I think the Man still resonated with a lot of people, but to me it was a very heavy-handed, kind of over-the-top way in terms of the way it was written and stuff. But with Mad Woman, it's still quite a cutting song, but I think it just gets to that message in a much stronger, I think more convincing way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, thinking of these songs, I mean, there's some songs here like you're speaking to. She's referencing her teenage years. She's referencing kind of like pre-fame relationships and stuff. And again, the perspective she's presenting there, that almost feels like you could hear that on like Fearless or something. I mean, not sonically wise, but like the lyrical content and stuff.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's pretty interesting. And there actually been some, speaking of theories, there has been some theorizing about Betty and whether it's actually like gay canon in terms of like these characters and whether it's actually been a gay relationship.
Yeah.
And there's some theorizing about the names of the characters are actually the names of Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively's kids, daughters.
Yeah,
so,
I guess so.
Some interesting reading if you want.
Definitely. To speak to your point about how you could have seen these sorts of songs, or at least this material on something like Taylor's first album, 17, it's like a more mature perspective of it though, right? It's like her looking at these things that are happening and like really, I think, teasing out the emotion between the interactions. Whereas, like Teardrops on My Guitar, it's like just this like longing for this like teenage love. Whereas something like Betty, it's not only, or Betty and Cardigan and Illicit Affair all tied together. It's not just like that longing and like the relationship breaking up. It's like really about like betrayal and then like trying to like win someone back, but knowing that the relationship is broken, or feeling like you were just tossed aside, but feeling reinvigorated with someone new, or when that opportunity comes back around. I think it's a sign of her growth, while also I think feeling a bit grounded more in like you said, her past writings. Any tracks that you say would be like by far the best for you, or that you found yourself going back to the most?
I think my favorite song is the first one, The One.
Yeah, The One's really good.
I've listened to that a few times. I think that one's just quite easy to listen to. Sounds really good. And it's kind of the mission statement from the start. I'm on some new shit. It's like her second line, know? I like The One a lot. I also like Great American Dynasty. Those are probably the ones I listen to the most so far.
Yeah.
And I think to me, Folklore, seeing this massive streaming success, right, without any promo and being such a strict genre return from her, seeing the mountains of success she's getting, I hope this convinces Taylor to continue to just operate on her own terms. Now that she's in full command of her career, do
what you want, girl.
Do what you want, because at the end of the day, you are kind of too big to fail. I actually saw some people comparing her to like older period Beyonce, where it's like, it doesn't really matter if you're actually making huge hits. You can just do what you want and people will be there when you want to be there. So I'm very curious to see what happens next, because she was going to tour this year for Lover, and obviously that did not happen due to the pandemic. Now, whatever plans, I believe we have postponed dates for 2021. I'm not positive, but is this album going to factor into that all that much? From what I know, there are obviously slower moments at her tour stops where she takes out the guitar and does some stuff. These songs obviously fit into those sections, but I'm actually just really curious, like what are Taylor's goals moving forward? Or was this really just kind of product of COVID, product of isolation? and just kind of something she wanted to dabble in, or will this
Mm.
really mark like Taylor kind of leaving like mainstream pop stardom, actively chasing that, leaving that behind? Who
Yeah.
knows?
It's interesting, and obviously we won't know, but this could be a real inflection point in terms of her career and the direction it goes in. Just to circle back, I wanted to shout out a couple of songs. I think August into This Is Me Trying are probably my two favorite back to back. The string and like the build up on August, I think is really strong. But I think the song that is going to be taken away from this and just be like the Taylor classic from this album that people point to is My Tears Ricochet. I have a feeling like
Mm.
that one's just gonna, that's like the total heartbreak. Like every line in that song is like perfectly written. I think maybe it's not her biggest one right now, but I think people are going to be coming back to that one a lot. So mark it down. When it's her biggest song in like 10 years, you can come back to this podcast, which hopefully you're following. Hit that subscribe button and let me know how read it was.